What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Fit, Healthy, and Most of All Happy podcast. I am your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm in the house.
And we have an incredible episode for you today. We actually have some really big questions that we get asked a lot. We're going to be covering all things body fat, how to measure body fat, bouncing back from a bad day, and the best time to weigh in. So some really incredible questions here. Before we jump into that, we're going to start with some really incredible quotes. And we're going to kick it off with Coach Kyle's quote first.
And my quote for this beautiful Monday is, ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets in them. Don't let what's happening around you get inside you and weigh you down. And it's just such a good reminder that there's going to be so many things going on around you in your life, things that pop up, obstacles, all that other stuff. But as Josh said recently, it's not about what happens, it's about how you deal with that situation. And it's just such a good reminder. And I love these little quotes that get you to think. And for myself, when I was listening to one of these motivational videos, I actually had to pause it and sit there and think about all that. And I was thinking, you know what, it's so true. Like, just there's so much water around you, and unless it actually gets in the ship, it's not a big deal. And relating that to our life and obstacles and things that pop up, there's a lot of mayhem, there's a lot of nonsense, there's a lot of craziness, and typically speaking, unless we let that get to us, it's not really going to affect us. And that's just my quote for this week, and hopefully that gets you thinking, and hopefully you can relate to it in some way or another.
Yeah, and I think this is a great call to have that introspection, and instead of blaming everything around you, say what is impacting me that could bring me down. Because at the end of the day, we're in control of our actions, we're in control of our thoughts, we're in control of our ambitions. And when you have that mindset of what is causing me to sink, what can I eliminate, how can I address that, how can I approach that, it's a lot of a better feeling than freaking out about the fact that you're in a vast ocean and there's distractions and challenges and other variables. And it's a good just reflection to really look at your own situation, be the master of your own domain, your own house. And speaking of introspection, I think that goes perfectly into my quote, which is actually from Ryan Holiday. And this was from his email newsletter. And I loved it. And I'm really excited to share here. So he wrote, "I was born this way. I've never learned anything different. My parents are such a terrible example. Everyone does it." And then he said, "What are these? Excuses that people use to justify staying the same as they are instead of striving to become better." And I love this because all of us have these. All of us have these preconceived notions and excuses, if you will. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Excuses sound the best to the person making them. But we'll use these things to say, oh, I'm overweight because my parents never had good food in the house, or they've never bought healthy food. I'm overweight because the gym is 45 minutes away from me. I'm unhealthy because of these habits I've been raised to do, or my situation or my work is just so crazy. It's so easy to find that excuse. And once again, yesterday, even it fired me up. I was at the gym doing my thing. Girl's in there crushing it, and she's the one who's missing an arm, and she's doing lat pull downs with her other arm that's half missing, essentially, just getting it done. And I'm thinking, even seeing her change one of the handles was so impressive because so much went into it. It was so much harder. It was more of a toil that after, even when I was away from her, I tried to change something myself with one hand, and how hard it was. And that day I was feeling a little bit tired. I had a lot of stuff to do later, and I'm like, okay, I have no excuses now because it's so easy. And then there'll be someone else who maybe has no arms that's going to say, okay, well, you have one arm, you're so blessed. Well, I can't do this. And there's always something where you can try and make yourself feel worse, but instead of trying to make your negatives such a big excuse, try and see it as a solution. How can you work through it? Even in that situation, she's clearly just out getting after it, getting it done, not letting these things impact her and doing it to the best of her ability, and she's crushing it. And I think that is such good motivation and good fire, and it's something to be mindful of. And even for us, as I mentioned, everyone has different things going on. Don't let these preconceived notions be in the way in front of you. And if you've never learned anything different, like the start of this quote, start educating yourself, start learn how to succeed with your situation. And the beauty of the internet is there's so many people that probably have similar situations and issues and schedules and things that you can find communities of like-minded people who have overcome that, who can help you listen to this podcast, and just really allowing yourself to break free of this. So once again, all the excuses such as I was born this way, I never learned anything different, my parents set a terrible example, everyone does it. What are these? Excuses that people use to justify staying the same instead of striving to be better. So I challenge you today, strive to be better.
I think one of the best things a lot of people can do is just think of those situations, like Josh said, the girl that's crushing in the gym, and always keep those types of things in the back of our head for those days where we feel like we're having a hard time, where we feel just a little bit tired, maybe a little bit sore. And I have about 5 to 10 memories from past experiences. And one of them was when I used to work out at a gym called Variety Village. It was a gym that I went to back in high school. And I remember just being at the squat rack, really just down on myself. I was super sore, and then I saw the guy walk in with a cane, and just it was a gym that was more so meant for kind of like older people, and just it really focused on like disabilities and supported a lot of those people there. And it was an amazing experience, an amazing gym, really great workouts there. But it was just so inspiring. Like I'll never forget. Like it's 10 years later, and I still remember that moment of that guy just walking in, putting that down, and just adding in his little things that he does to help himself squat and just use the hack squat machine. And it's like, there's so many of us who complain about our situation, who just maybe slack off when we shouldn't be. And when you have those 5 to 10 memories that you just never forget and you look back on, it's so inspiring. It's not meant to be something that's, to put that other person down or just whatever it is. But when you look at your perspective and just like what you're going through, it's so, it makes things completely different. And it actually brings me into one of my thoughts that I was thinking, because I was looking through a comment section the other day. Chris Williamson, the host of the Modern Wisdom podcast, who we listen to his interviews, he made a shorts on YouTube, and it was his morning routine. And I went to, watch it. I was like, man, that is a great routine. Kind of sounds pretty similar to mine. He'd wake up, go for a walk, he'd do a bit of meditation. And then I look at the comments section, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, it got a lot of views, so like well over 1 million. So it kind of blew up. And I was like, there are so many excuses here. Like every person like with the most thumbs up was just like, yeah, but here's my situation. You should try that, or try having this situation, or being whatever it is. And there was a million different things. And I'm like, you will never, like with that mindset, when you're looking for a reason to complain or feel bad or guilty about your situation and just try to come up with this. I'm like, this morning routine wasn't even bad. Like they're like, yeah, well, it must be nice to have 3 hours. And it's like, no, like there's so many people like that. And I really just wanted to challenge like anyone who has those beliefs of just like, it must be lucky to have that type of freedom or that type of time. Like you're never going to be able to get past those obstacles and those things that are holding you back with that mindset. So I know a lot of you look for reasons to succeed, and you are crushing it. But if you do have that thing that holds you back, like mentally, I did really want to challenge you with that, because I hear it all the time from people I talk to. Oh, it must be nice to have just a little bit more time in the morning. It's like, no, just you're looking for excuses straight up. I just want to be transparent, and I just wanted to be fully honest with you about this thing that was on the top of my head.
Call yourself out on it as well. Like you're the person that can either keep doing them and just allow yourself to have that and to crush those excuses, or you can say, okay, I'm being lazy, I'm going to get this done, or yeah, I don't feel like it, but I'm going to find a way to get through it. Or my parents were focused on this thing that isn't how I want to live my life. I'm going to rework my understanding of that and have a healthy relationship with food or the gym or whatever it may be, or your mental health. Like it's a good opportunity to challenge that, be your own person. And it's so easy to get overwhelmed by everyone else and everyone else's situations and social media. But sometimes I think this is a good reminder between our two quotes to really focus on your journey, be critical in a loving sense to yourself, where you can look to do better, to develop. And I just think that's a great reminder of that. So that's all I have there for the thoughts. Anything else you want to jump into?
Yeah, one other thing. It's funny because I always get random thoughts when I'm in the sauna, especially by myself, and like I have to rush to my phone to write it down. And yesterday I was just sitting there thinking after my workout, something random. What's optimal doesn't mean it's best for you. So what I mean by this is there's a lot of times you'll go online, you'll see someone says the most optimal time to work out is this time, the most optimal time to get protein, the most optimal this and that. And one thing to really think about is that it's very situational. I know we always say it depends, and it is very true, but just take in that like for your situation, what's optimal will vary. For what's most optimal for Josh as a father, just got these other things going on, may not be the most optimal for me. And it's not that like, and there's so many people, once again, it's very different between like making excuses for certain things, but also just realizing, hey, the most optimal time for someone, parent of 3 to work out isn't going to be what they say on studies. You know what I mean? So the biggest thing is to take a full 360 look at your situation, figure out what works best best for you and what's optimal for you. Even if there's a study that says you should be getting this amount of whatever, sleep, meditation, cardio, just take a look and figure out what you can sustainably do, what makes you feel your absolute best. And that's just one random thought I had that I wanted to share with you.
That is incredibly well said, and you need to work within your situation, your lifestyle. Someone might want to fully devote themselves to fitness and never eat anything unhealthy, have the most perfect body, work out 3 hours a day, and you might say, hey, I want to be in shape, but I don't care to look like Arnold. I'm happy doing 3 total body workouts, 45 hour, like let's say a workout. I aim to eat 80% healthy, and I'm okay with the extra 20. That's your decision. That's your choice. And I think if you live to someone else's decision or choice, or you have that thought that you need to be in there for 4 hours, it's going to make you miserable to it. So that's where having a clear understanding of what your goal is and what it will take to reach it, and finding that level of comfort for you is good. And if you enjoy the challenge, lean into that challenge, like test yourself, go through that period where it's hard to adapt, and you'll find you can adapt upwards, achieve more and do more. And it's really an amazing feeling. And you could take that to anything. That could be to education, that could be towards self-development, that could be towards the gym. Like, trying it is good too, and you can kind of get an understanding of where you want to be, similar to how we mentioned before, like with a level of leanness. Like, it is good to get lean, to do bulks, to see where you look the best, you feel the best, it's most manageable with your schedule, your ambitions, and just a good reminder for that. So that was incredibly well said. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into our client shout out so we can learn how they overcame barriers to achieve their transformation through our online coaching. So who do we have this week?
So we have this week Patricia, and I had worked with her, and she lost 70 pounds in 9 months. And the best thing is she has 3 young ones. She has 3 kids kicking around, and she made no excuses. Like, I know we're kind of talking a lot about excuses, but like every time I would check in with her, she would find ways to get something done. And she would send me videos of her working out in her backyard with her kids just running around. And, it was really inspiring and really cool to see. And like, you can see the photos on the screen. If you are watching on YouTube, you'll get to see some visuals. So the photos on the screen, as well as a bunch of her different tips. But it's so inspiring to see her life fully transform. She had shared with me herself that she was going through a divorce. She was struggling when she first signed up. Times were tough, and she just needed that change. So when she started to lose that weight, every part of her life changed. Her mindset, her confidence. She started to win some, competitions, which you can once again see, Miss America type stuff, which is amazing. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Patricia. I know she's listening to it now, but if you are someone that's in a position where you're struggling, you want to feel better, you don't have that accountability, you don't have that person to call you out and say, hey, like, Patricia, let's do this. We got to make this work. And even just having a game plan. Like, originally when she started, she had no direction. She's like, well, I want to get in shape. Like, what do I do? And that's where having a customized program, nutrition, the macros set out for her, that guidance, that support, she's set for the rest of her life. Like, a few years later, and this is actually a throwback transformation, she's still in the best shape, and I'm just so proud. But if you are looking to get the best shape possible, to lose fat over the next 90 days and also build muscle, all you have to do is send us a message with the keyword fat loss to our Instagram, which is COLOSSUSFIT, and we cannot wait to help 4 of you awesome people get the results you deserve and keep them.
Awesome. Now into the mailbag, and we're going to answer your questions. And like I said, we got 3 killer questions today. So first and foremost, it's actually a 3-part question. So it's like 6 questions. So we are set. This is going to be a killer episode. So sit back, enjoy, take a sip of that coffee, and let's jump into it. So first and foremost, this is a 3-part question. I saw your IG story the other day about you doing the DEXA scan. First part of the question is, what is the most ideal body fat range for men and women? And the truth is, I had to go to Google for this because I can't say I have this off the top of my head. If you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, you'll know that me and Kyle are not big fans of body fat, because most people just will guess what their body fat is, and that'll be the magic number, or people will use the numbers on the scales. Both are highly, highly, highly inaccurate. Those are not going to be the best. The most accurate ways to do it are calipers, so where you actually go around and measure, and even that, there's a lot of user error. depending on how tight you pinch each area. And unless you're a pro doing it, it's not going to be the most consistent measurement. I used to do this back in the day, and I did find it was a little bit different to the gold standard, which is a DEXA scan. So this is actually used to check bone density amongst other things, but it's also a great indication of your body fat. It's considered the gold standard. And then a bod pod would be pretty much right in between those two. So if you do have access to that at the gym, it's awesome. You can kind of learn about your body. You can learn about your symmetry, your bone density, all these great tools. But this is the one time I actually kind of care what my body fat is. But even saying so, I can't say I actually do care, because in the past, like, and I find people get so caught up on it. So for me, for instance, when I go on my scale, it usually says I'm like 20% body fat, 21% body fat. And then I did my DEXA scan recently and I'm 11% body fat. I can tell very visually I'm not 20% body fat, but some people would probably look at me and go, oh, he has a six pack, he has some veins in his abs, he has some veins on his body, he's probably 8% or 5% body fat. All the time people say, you're probably like 3% body fat, bro, you got no body fat. But it's healthy for the body to have body fat, and that's the big thing to keep in mind. And what I've always said, similar to weight, is let's say it said I was 50% body fat, but I looked exactly how I did, I wouldn't care, because it wouldn't change how I look. Obviously, it'd be a little confusing, but you'd assume it's an error because you can see, oh, I'm visually lean, I'm at a good place, and that's kind of where I have my mindset. But in terms of optimal ranges, I was actually curious to see, and it's pretty much exactly where I thought it would be. So according to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, the healthy body fat percentages for men aged 20 to 39 are between 8 and 19%. And 8 to 19 seems about right to me. 8 is actually pretty lean. A lot of people think, oh, 8% just means I got a little bit of abs, I look good, probably pretty much how I look now. You can see on the screen where I'm at now. But keep in mind, being lean comes with a price. Oftentimes when you're very lean, your testosterone will go down, your actual growth hormone will go down, your hormones in general will take a little bit of a nosedive, because body fat is important. It has a function. Our body needs it. And some people can sit leaner more comfortably, others can't. So even for me, being at like 11, 12 is like totally perfect. So the range of 8 to 19 makes sense. My general rule that I've always kind of gone by that works, and everyone's so different. And what's cool about the scan is we both did it. And like, for instance, Kyle's stomach area had a lot more fat than mine, but mine was at 7% compared to my actual overall of 11. So my stomach was at 7% body fat, that specific area. I don't hold much fat there, but I hold fat very evenly through my legs, my upper body. Even when I'm insanely lean, Kyle could not be lean at all, and his upper body will be way leaner than me. And his DEXA showed that, like, my upper body held a lot more body fat than him, and that's where we had big visual differences. And these general rules of thumb don't always work for everyone. But to me, 15% body fat, you'd have a flat stomach, maybe your top two abs, you'd be in that area. 12% body fat, you'd have kind of a six pack, maybe just shy of it. 10, you'd have a six pack with some veins in your abs. And then anything below that, you're just getting crazy lean, and you should have veins everywhere, and there should be other indications of that. But that's how I would gauge the 10 to 15 for me. And I found it was pretty accurate, and that's what I've always done with my friends. And then the ideal body fat range for females, because a lot of females will say, okay, well, I want to be 11% like you, Josh. But that's not possible, because it's entirely different systems, right? Women have a lot of different functions. Like, even you consider breasts are mainly fat. Like, you're going to hold more fat than a man who doesn't need fat for any function on his body, essentially. Like, we need a minimal amount. So the ideal range for women is actually 21 to 32% between the ages of 20 to 39. Then these ranges change a little bit from 40 to 59. So women should be between 23 and 33, and men 11 to 21, because as you get older, it's actually a sign of negative health and frailty if you actually do see your weight go down. Your goal should actually be to hold your weight, have more protein, maintain your muscle, because as you get older, your hormones suppress more, you lose more muscle, your bones weaken, and that's when you can be at risk for a lot of injuries and frailty amongst other things. So that's where you should have a little bit more body fat when you're older. But case in point, this is something you got to play around with, and those are the ideal ranges. But I think the most important question is an ideal range for you, because I could be 8%, but I don't want to be. I'd have to sacrifice having big meals. I need to be even more dialed in. I'd probably have, like, I'd be really tired all the time, and I just don't feel good there. Whereas when I'm a little bit heavier, like, I'm already a big person, like I'm 210 pounds, I don't necessarily like being at 15% because that'd be me at like 218-ish pounds or anything past that. And I just feel like I get sluggish. I can't do sports as well. I don't move as well. I fatigue faster. I feel like I take up more space, and I personally don't enjoy being there. So I like being a little bit leaner, being as muscular as I can at that leaner weight. And that's where I feel good. And that's where you need to ask yourself, where do you feel best? And keep in mind, like, even for me, seeing 20% on the scale versus the 11 I actually am, that's just electrostim. So it'll just put an electric stim through your body, and it will use the preset measurements you put in, so your height and weight, and it will deduct something from there. But there's such a big error. Like, I could be 6'2", 211, or 210, whatever, and I could be 6'2", 210, and these could be two different looks. One, I could have a ton of body fat, one I could be very lean with a lot of muscle, and it can't really distinguish between the two, and that's where the scales kind of suck. But the solution there is, if you have the scale and you care about that measurement, even for me, if I'm normally 20 and I go down to 19, that's a good indication I've lost body fat. But if I'm at 20 and I go to 21, it's an indication my body fat's going up or my net mass has just gone up. And that's where it also is deceiving, is if I weigh in super heavy one day, it's going to say my body fat shot up. But the chances of me actually putting on 2% body fat from like a big meal or a bad day of eating is not the reality. So I know it's a little bit complicated, and that's why, like, we always say it depends, but I find body fat is one of the worst indications of how you should measure yourself. I think the best is visual progress, looking in the mirror, photos, just how you walk around, how you look. Next is weight, and then I'd actually say measure, or how you look, measurements, weight, then body fat. And I think it's a good extra tool. And what I do is I do measurements every month. We'll talk more about weighing in later, but I weigh in every day, obviously. And then I'm going to aim to do one DEXA every year to indicate that I'm making progress, getting leaner, and gaining muscle. And even since my last DEXA, when I was 22, I'm 27 now, it was awesome to see I put on about 7 pounds of muscle and actually lost fat during that process, which is really, really cool. So I was pretty proud of myself to see that I've still made that progression. And you might say, okay, well, that sucks. That's not a ton of progression. But you consider my goals, and having lifted for 10 years, I'm really proud that I've been able to do that through all the different cycles and stages and things that popped up in my life, through COVID, through being a father, all these different things. So to have that progress is incredible to me. And I like I said, I don't care to be much bigger than this. I just like making sure that I have good, dense, lean muscle. That's that look I want. And these are good indications to make sure you're seeing the progress how you want. So that's my big ramble, but those are kind of how you use those tools in those ranges. And I didn't want to just say the ideal ranges without giving more context, because it would look like I'm outside of the ideal range, even though I'm actually in it and I'm near the bottom of that range. So that's where you got to be careful of the tools you use to measure. And I guess that answered the second question, which are, what other ways can I check body fat without getting a DEXA scan? So once again, you could look at a bod pod, you could search a DEXA scan in your area. You could also do the calipers, or you could do the scales. But like I said, you are going to get less and less accurate as you go down the row. And then last but not least, what do the results say? Okay, so you pretty much got my results. That was kind of my big takeaways from there. Another thing I'm really proud of, I read Dr. Peter Attia's new book on longevity, and he spoke how one of the biggest things was maintaining that bone density as you get older, so you're not at risk for osteoporosis, because that frailty and having things break actually is a huge cause of mortality later in life, because as you start to lose your body and it starts to break down, you can become very dangerous and you can lose a lot of function. So even for me, it was cool. I was in the 100th centile, which is nuts. So that means I'm at the top for bone density. And I looked previously, I was like 98%. And one of the best ways to improve your bone density is to be in the gym, to lift a lot, to actually be strong, because that will actually make your bones bigger. And for me now, lifting well over 10 years, it's awesome to see the health effects of that. And that's one thing I love about coaching. A lot of my clients will come in, they'll start looking freaking amazing. They'll feel amazing in a bathing suit. Everyone's complimenting them. They just walk in a restaurant, everyone's looking how good they look. And that's cool. Like, the vanity is really cool. I've always said that. But oftentimes, like, I love getting these messages. They'll say, hey, I just did my blood work and my doctor couldn't believe it. They had to check to make sure it was actually the same person as before, because it's so much better. All my markers are just way better. Seeing things get cleared up, get healed just from being fit, being healthy, and how powerful that is. And I think that's an extra little bonus. So that's mine. Go ahead and do yours, Kyle.
Yeah, I was pretty happy as well. Like I was in the 99 percentile for the bone density, but there's a lot of really cool information from it. Like even I texted Josh afterwards saying, "Man, like I'm so motivated." Like especially not from like the body fat perspective, but just to like build muscle to make sure I'm making progress and all that great stuff. Because obviously from a DEXA scan, you can see how much of it is fat and how much of it's muscle, and knowing that it's like as accurate pretty much as it could be versus like a scale, it definitely gives you some good info. But mine had said I guessed 15% and it had said 14.2%, which I was quite happy with. I did realize though that over the years, especially from all the running, from all the stuff that I had done, I did lose about 8 pounds from the last time I did a DEXA scan, which was quite a few years, and 4 pounds of that was muscle. And I kind of expected, and obviously just from doing so much cardio, marathons, all this other stuff, like I was kind of expecting a little bit of muscle loss, and it's pretty inevitable, but I'm definitely happy that it wasn't as drastic as it could have been. And I definitely did everything I could in my possible thing aside from taking steroids to like maintain as much. But even just now having that goal of like, you know what, it's time to build up, it's time to build some more muscle, and just, using that as like a measurement tool like once every year is definitely awesome. And it also shows you even potentially any imbalances where you have more muscle on one leg versus one on the other. And like there's just a lot of really good information. But the moral of the story and the best part that what Josh had said about this entire thing is that you really, like I said before, you have to ask yourself what's ideal for you. So when I'm looking at this DEXA scan and taking a look at the results and the numbers, like I've been anywhere between 155 pounds and 207 pounds over the last 8 years. I've done it all. I've been 180, I've been 190, I've been 160. And I always look at a number of different things for my current situation. How's my energy levels? How's my strength? Am I confident and just happy with how I look? How's my endurance? Is my cardio good? Do I get winded doing certain things? Like there's a bunch of different things, but I really recommend sitting down and like figuring out, like I said before, what's optimal for you. And that's what's going to matter. Like no matter what a number says, no matter like if you're feeling absolutely incredible, if the results say that you're healthy, if everything else, like whether you're 8%, like Josh was saying, or 14, it's really a matter of like what makes you happy day to day and what makes you feel your absolute best. And even just so many of our clients, when they have more energy to keep up with their kids, when they just feel great taking their shirt off, also when they go out with their kids to the beach, like there's so many things to consider within this journey. And that's why there's no one size fits all thing. And the last thing I was going to say as well is like so many people ask us what our body fat is, even like some people like, Josh, man, you're so lean. Like what's your body fat? And where it does get challenging, I know Josh said this, but I was listening to a podcast and this business guy had said he was 14%. And I look at him, I'm like, I mean, I'm not a body fat expert, but I'm like, it's at least 22%, and that's where it's tough is people will throw out these random numbers. And it's like, there's so many other metrics to definitely keep track of, like how you feel, how you look, just like how much progress you're making. And a lot of times people will say these random things. I know Josh mentioned it, but I've seen it like hundreds of times over where people say that stuff. And anyways, that's my last about the body fat side of things. And those were some great answers from Coach Josh, and hopefully that helped you in some way or another.
Awesome. Now into the next question, which is how do you bounce back from a bad day?
I honestly I first of all, if I have a bad day, a bad situation, I reflect. I think, you know what? Hey, maybe I wasn't as prepared. And no matter what, 10 years later, I'll still have those times where I have to reflect back and be like, I didn't do that cooking like I usually would, or, I let the willpower get the best of me, or whatever the situation is. And the first step will always be to reflect, to get lessons learned, so that way it doesn't happen consistently. I know so many people who will have a bad day on a Friday, and then Saturday's a horrible day, and then Sunday's even worse, and then it's all over. Not that it's over, but they end up just saying, well, I'm going to give up, or they're not feeling motivated. So spend some time reflecting and just really learn from that experience. And I'd say like just jump back to it. Like really don't spend time dwelling, like don't spend time feeling guilty for yourself or any of that stuff. I know so many times when I have these conversations with people, they beat themselves up over it. I realize, hey, it's one day, it's not something that you want to make a habit of, but when you can learn from it and just like learn to move on, I think that was one of the greatest things, because I used to beat myself up over it, especially when we were getting ready for competitions, really trying to lean out at the very beginning. I just remember myself like trying to do like endless cardio. Like I'll never forget having, I think it was like a chocolate bar that was 200 calories, and then I ended up going to the gym to try to just like work it all off. And like I really had a bad mindset, and I know a lot of people are like that, so they try to make up for it. And I find that when stuff like this happens, you don't realize it, but you start telling yourself that when I slip up, I'm going to go do, let's say, endless cardio. I'm going to go to the gym for an hour. The next day, I'm going to start to decrease my calories. When that happens, you're just going to start to mess up even more. You're going to start to create a habit out of it. Even like the time that I would do that, I would decrease my calories from like a little slip up. Then I would be even more hungry, and then it would cause you to slip up more. And I see a lot of these bad cycles happening. So my biggest thing is learn from it and just get back into it and don't dwell on it. That's my personal thing, and I'm sure Josh has some viewpoints as well.
Yeah, Kyle crushed it there, and I was actually asked this on our Instagram AMA. So if you're not following us on Instagram, make sure you are. We have a lot of content there. We answer questions specifically for that in video format, which is nice, so you can get little snippets, extra motivation. We're always running gift card giveaways just to thank our community for being awesome. So you can find us on Instagram at ColosssusFit, COLOSSUSFIT. And I shared the advice of the rule of never missing twice. So if you have a bad day, like let's say one day you don't hit your macros, the next day make sure you hit those macros, because you never want to have back-to-back days, because that's when you can make a bad habit. Or let's say you skip a workout. Don't skip a workout twice. If you miss one, you got to get in there the next day. It's important for people to remember they're human and things pop up and we're not perfect and we can aim to be better. But like Kyle said, having that understanding, like his tips were just so good. Aiming to do better, being real with yourself is so powerful. And I find this never missing twice is really good motivation. Like you had a horrible sleep, do everything you can to try and have a good sleep. And all you can do is what's in your control, what you can aim to do better. And when you have that mindset that you're trying, you're putting in that effort, I find it's very relieving and it makes the process feel a lot better. And like Kyle said too, you don't want to be that victim of always being perfect or falling off. So perfect or horrible, perfect or horrible. Aim to be constantly good, like doing your best. That's the sweet spot. Perfection, like I said, is great, but it shouldn't be expected. And then last but not least, we have a simple one, which is I'm new to fitness. How much should I weigh in? I heard once a week from someone who's doing Weight Watchers.
So yeah, you hear this a lot from specific Weight Watchers community and just, I guess, other people online. Once again, it's hard to trust the info out there because there's so much, but truth is that we find that weighing in as much as you can. So for us, it's every single day. It's great because it allows you to keep track of progress more accurately. So for our clients, for ourselves, we like to calculate the average weigh-in every single week because it's a lot more accurate. And what a lot of people don't realize is there's so many things that cause your weight to fluctuate, just such as your food intake from the previous day, salt, carbs, water, washroom stuff, like there's a million different things. And when you just put all your stock into one weigh-in, it's not as accurate. And I know a lot of people, for example, let's say Weight Watchers, let's say you have your Sunday weigh-in. The day before, you're going to keep your calories nice and low. You're probably not going to drink as much water, and then you're going to weigh in. And it's just, you might get a lower weigh-in, but that's not even actually as accurate. Whereas the consistent day-to-day, the same time, the same place, the same clothing, all that stuff, and you just toss that into the spreadsheet, especially for us with our coaching clients, we calculate the average, as I said. Spreadsheet does its work itself, and it gives us a more accurate measurement tool. But I definitely don't recommend the once every week, once every 2 weeks. If you do struggle mentally as well with weighing in, just try to look at it as data and just put it aside. Don't spend too much time thinking about it, especially with us as a coach. We actually take a look at that info and give you feedback, so you don't need to worry at all, and we can share all that info with you. But more of the story is as much as you can. The more data, the better.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was a fantastic episode. We really do hope you enjoyed it. Once again, make sure to hit us up on Instagram. Our Instagram is at ColosssusFit, COLOSSUSFIT. And if you want to work one-on-one with us, this is your chance. Go ahead and DM us on Instagram saying fat loss to kickstart that journey of losing fat, seeing that change, and building your best body. So once again, at ColosssusFit, COLOSSUSFIT. We'll see you on Instagram. Peace out.